In this video, we shall be using the orbit networks created in the previous tutorial video and the orbit trainer to create classifications of user skills in a fantasy RPG. Let's start where we left off in the previous tutorial with two orbit networks in our Apotheosis orbit library, each containing 3 orbit skills, which were used to measure the attacking and defending performance of the player. With the player attacking network highlighted in the Library Explorer, focus the orbit trainer. As explained in the tutorial, getting started with the orbit editor, the orbit trainer allows us to create classifications and train orbit to associate skill sets with those classifications. First, let's create the classifications that were used to summarize player behavior. Recall that in our game, we want to adapt the AI behavior based on the attacking strategy of the player. When creating classifications, we want to consider ways that the user could combine or use those skills in the game. To start creating classifications, click the Start Training button in the top left corner of the orbit trainer. This will bring up a dialog window called Classification Setup, asking you to create the classifications for this network. Firstly, let's create classifications for players who specialize in one skill. In other words, a classification for players specializing in either the charge-up ability, slow attacks, or combos. To do this, click the Create Classification button in the bottom left hand of the Classification Setup window 3 times. This will create 3 currently unnamed classifications. Name them Charge Up, Slow, and Combo. We now need to consider more complicated classifications for players who are using a mixture of skills. For example, we might want to differentiate between players who regularly use both the charge-up skill and either slow attacks or combo attacks. Let's create 2 new classifications called Charge Up Slow and Charge Up Combo so that we can classify these players. Finally, let's create a classification for players who are using a mixture of skills, which we'll call Mix. It's important to note that we could have created more classifications than the 6 we're using here. However, be aware that the more classifications you use, the more data you will need to get accurate classifications in the orbit trainer. Press Accept. The classification setup window will close, and orbit will present you with a similar interface to the one shown on screen. You will notice that each skill you created in the network editor is shown with a number between 0 and 100 underneath it, and a coloured circle underneath that.